Mark Jeffries.
Thank you very much, thank you, and good afternoon. Welcome back to what promises to be quite the exciting session. So my name is Mark Jeffries, and for those of you who've known me before, you'll know that I don't start any session without sharing at least one or two ideas on how we communicate, how we connect, how we build relationships with others that add to our success, and today is no exception. But what I'm going to share with you right now also, in many ways, forms part of the introduction to our great keynote speaker who is just minutes away. I'm often asked, is there a commonality to very successful communicators, to people who have done very well in business, to individuals who seem to impress? Is there a commonality? And the answer is yes. In the way that they communicate, I always notice 3 C's. The 3 C's of communication excellence, and I'm going to share them with you right now. C1 is consistency. C number 2 is clarity. And C number 3 is confidence. These are the 3 C's, and let's just very rapidly go through them. Consistency first. As humans, we trust and we buy consistency. When someone we work with is consistent, they say, this is what we're going to do, this is how we're going to do it, and they stick to the plan, we like that. Because a pathway is set out and we're happy to follow it. We buy consistency. Politicians are a great example of what happens when you're inconsistent. Because when a politician says one thing one year and another thing another year, what do we call them? Flip-floppers. And as soon as they flip, as soon as they flop, we don't vote for them anymore. We need consistency. Now what about clarity? Well, in our industry, in IT, this is our #1 challenge. Because to be a real winner, you have to be extremely clear with your messaging. How can you test your own clarity? Well, this one's easy. After you've spent some time explaining an idea or a concept to someone within your organization, maybe how you want to use cloud, how you think it should be deployed, the real test of clarity is when you leave the room, can they repeat back exactly what you said? Not actually in your own words, but in their words. That is a test of clarity. And here's our problem in IT. We live and breathe this business. We're so immersed in the language, the acronyms, the jargon. We start to use them all the time. We imagine everyone around us also knows these words, and they don't. And it tests our clarity level. So consistency, clarity, and finally, confidence. Well, I'm not going to stand here and say, people, be confident. You already are. Look at you. You're very confident in what you do and what you know. But people buy confidence. And as soon as we see it break, we're out. As an example, you go to the doctor. You got a little brown mark on your wrist. You go, doctor, I've got a brown mark on my wrist. What's this? The doctor looks at it and goes, oh, that's nothing. I've seen a million of those. Put this cream on. You'll be fine in a week. Ah, wonderful. So much confidence. But what happens if you go to the doctor and you go, doctor, there's a brown mark on my wrist, and the doctor goes, oh, what the hell is that? I've never seen one of those before. Now you're worried. There's no confidence, and we need a second opinion. Those are the 3 C's of communication: consistency, clarity, and confidence. And I have to say, I can confirm that our keynote speaker for this afternoon has always delivered the 3 C's and so much more. His is a story of determination, of courage, of innovation, and, perfect for this event, really big disruption. He has disrupted more industries than I can mention. Just to name a few: music, retail, air travel, rail travel, and even space. The final frontier. So what does it take to be a true risk taker, a visionary, and quite frankly, an all-round nice guy? Well, before we invite up to the stage the man himself, just as a little appetizer, have a look at this.
Everybody at Virgin love a challenge. I think what Virgin is about is taking on big conglomerates and moving into their territory and seeing if we can shake them up. We've managed to do that in the music business, we've managed to do that in the aviation business, in the mobile phone business, and I think that where the people who work for Virgin get their passion from is being proud of the company they work for, being proud of the difference that Virgin's making.
Concentrating on the area in front of my feet, aren't you?
It's where I feel comfortable.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Sir Richard Branson. That was quite the entrance. I like that. Now, am I right? Did you arrive here in Vegas this afternoon on the inaugural flight of Virgin America from LA to Las Vegas?
Well, I like to combine things, you know.
Well, I was going to say, so you basically created a brand new route just for CA Technologies.
Of course. And I wanted to make sure that when they went home, they would be able to go home in comfort.
That was very thoughtful. That was not only one of the new routes announced this month, also Newark. You're an airline that's expanding dramatically. Can we take it that you're optimistic about air travel and therefore the economy as a whole?
I think you can take it that I believe that if you create the best airline, that you should be able to survive. So, you know, like the best hotel, the best club, the best airlines, they generally survive. I mean, we started 30 years ago with one second-hand 747 with Virgin Atlantic, and we were up against TWA with 300 planes, Pan Am with 300 planes, Air Florida with 100 planes, and 16 other airlines. Every single one of those airlines have gone bankrupt. Not one of them exists today. And so you can be a very small airline taking on these giants, and if you get the quality right, and so your staff really are proud of the company they work for, and they bounce into work in the mornings feeling it's the best company in the world, then they've got a smile, and then your customers have a smile. So it is possible to be a lot smaller than, to be the David versus the Goliath, and to slay the Goliath. But it's challenging, but it is possible.
Now, let's go back to that first aircraft. I mean, just who starts an airline? You decided just let's do it, as you said on the video. Did you at any point think, I'm making the biggest mistake of my life, and what on earth am I doing?
Well, just to go one step back, I was actually in Puerto Rico trying to get to the Virgin Islands, and the American Airlines plane I was on, they decided they didn't have enough passengers, so they just cancelled the flight. And I went backstage and I hired a plane, and I got a blackboard and I wrote Virgin Airlines, $29 to the Virgin Islands, and I walked out around all the passengers that had been bumped, and I filled up my first plane.
Wow.
When I got back to England, I thought, well, airlines do bump people. They don't really care about us that much. They do treat us a little bit like cattle. So I rang up Boeing and I said, my name's Richard Branson. I was 29 years old, and have you got any second-hand 747s for sale?
As you do.
And they said, well, what's the name of your company? And I said, Virgin. And we had the Rolling Stones, the Sex Pistols, we have Culture Club, we have lots of great bands. And there was a big pause the other end. Anyway, they were brave enough to send us a salesperson, let us have a second-hand 747, and this little Virgin does go the whole way. So.
You heard it here first. You are also smart enough to learn from those who have gone before, whether they were successful or whether they failed. And if my memory serves me right, there was a chap known as Freddie Laker, and he ran the Laker Skytrain, and in many ways was trying to do what you decided to try and do as well. Was he helpful to you?
Well, he sat me down. I worked on a houseboat. He sat me down and said, look, there's two bits of advice I'll give you. First of all, British Airways will get up to every dirty trick to put you out of business. You can just remember three words: sue the bastards. And he said that he'd sued them after it was too late. He was given $10 million by them after he was bankrupt. And anyway, we remembered his words. We did sue the bastards, and we got the biggest damages awarded in history in Britain. The other bit of advice he gave me, which I'm not sure I really should say this, but anyway, just I'll say it anyway. He said, look, you're nearly 30 years old. I've got problems with my prostate. You should go to a doctor. He said, get him to stick his finger up your ass, but just make sure he doesn't have both hands on the shoulder when he does it. Anyway.
I would have to say both very wise words and completely appropriate. Completely appropriate. By the way, going back even further, before the doctor's inspections, you left university early, didn't you?
I never went to university.
You didn't even go?
No, I was, I left school at 15, and the Vietnamese War was raging, horrible war, another horrible war, and a lot of us young people just felt it was an unjust war, it was a dreadful mistake, and so we decided just to try to start a magazine to campaign against it, so worked out of the school phone box, trying to sell enough advertising to cover the printing and the paper costs. And once I'd sold enough, I quit school to launch the magazine. And it was my education. I mean, I was trying to, get the magazine to survive. I was interviewing people, and it was a great way of becoming an entrepreneur by creating something that you felt passionate about.
Did your parents support this direction in life?
Well, I was hopeless at school. I'm dyslexic, and so they felt there's not much chance, so he's going to get far if we leave him at school. So they were very good at just saying, you know what you want to do. At 15, 16, my dad said he didn't know what he wanted to do when he was 21, so give it a go. And I think, I was fortunate to survive, and there were many moments where, there is a very thin dividing line between success and failure, and I just managed to stay the right side of that line. And, as it turned out, it was, the best education I could have had, and, I'm very inquisitive. I mean, I spend my life loving to learn about the kinds of things you would learn about at university, but just getting out there and doing them, and I think the reason Virgin's gone to just so many different areas is because I see life as one long learning process, and I see situations everywhere I go where we can do this better, or we can do that better, and let's give it a go, and it's been great fun.
And that was my next question. Is it still fun? Do you still wake up in the morning with, frankly, all of the wealth that anyone could wish for, with everything set up and running, and still have fun?
I think I would be the saddest person on this earth if I didn't wake up every morning with the biggest grin on my face. I just love every minute of every day of my life, and the mundane things as well. I mean, you've got to, if you. There are people, for instance, like, with Virgin America, they've worked enormously hard to create this wonderful airline. They've done all the hard work. The least I can do when they launch a new route is come and, do, 30 interviews saying the same things 30 times to help make sure it's on the map. And so, there are plenty of things I do in life which, where I might rather be doing something else. But you have a responsibility if you've got 70,000 people working for you. They're working really hard to support them. But there's tons of fun, really real fun. I mean, actually today, coming to Las Vegas, all these gorgeous girls and all their wonderful outfits, and life's not too bad.
It's one of the
I can suffer it.
You can suffer through it.
No, I mean, look, where I dreamt big when I was very young. I can now dream even bigger, and make those dreams become possible. So, whether it's, for instance, space travel, it's ridiculous. I mean, we're building a spaceship to go to space, and it's, I have to pinch myself. And NASA and the Russians, they built, space programs. And the last 50 years since people first went into space, only 500 people have had the privilege of going to space. And that's because it's run by government. Private companies like Virgin will make it possible, I think, for most people in this room to go to space in their lifetime. And that means two things. We have to build safe spaceships so we can give everybody a return ticket, otherwise they won't, their friends won't buy another plane.
And they won't come back.
Well, mother-in-laws, maybe etc. Anyway. And we have to get it so that they can afford it. Now, the second part of that challenge, we're beginning to work on. So, our initial space flights, we're going to give people a taste of space.
So we're just up and down.
Yeah, you go into space. You can look back at the Earth. You can marvel at the Earth. You become an astronaut. You're going to have the ride of a lifetime.
And you take some Instagram pics while you're up there, obviously.
I'm sure there'll be lots of photographs taken.
How much does that cost, by the way? Just out of interest.
Well, the initial flights are a couple $100,000, but I suspect for a lot of people in this room, they will one day be able to afford that if they can't already. But in time, I think we'll be able to get that price down. And
I'm sorry to interrupt. What drives that business idea? Is it the reality of being able to turn a profit, or the dream of making something possible for everyone that has been impossible?
What drove it originally was President Gorbachev invited me to be the first person to go up in a Russian spaceship, but he wanted $60 million for it.
What a lovely invitation.
And I was, we have a charitable foundation. We do a lot of work in Africa, and I felt that was, I maybe could have afforded it, but it was a waste of money, and it'd be much better to spend that money on building our own spaceship program. And So the initial desire was a personal quest to go to space, as 8 out of 10 people, I think, would just love to do it. And then can we build a spaceship company where where thousands of people can have the chance? Can that spaceship company then put up satellites into space and much cheaper than they've been put up in the past? Can it influence the price of internet access or telephone access? Can it can it have some can it examine whether the effects of global warming and can it get people from New York to Australia in 2 hours rather than in 18 hours? So you start in one place, and if you keep asking questions, and you've got these wonderful engineers and technicians who want to prove themselves, and you test them and you encourage them, suddenly everything becomes possible. We do.
In fact, that's exactly it, because this is not only disruptive, hugely disruptive, but the risk you're taking is massive, and you're exactly right. We have a great video to show you, so sit back and have a look at Virgingalactic.
The exploration of space will go ahead, and it is one of the great adventures of all time. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Many years ago, the great British explorer George Mallory on Mount Everest was asked why did he want to climb it. He said because it is there. Well, space is there, and we're going to climb it.
Virgingalactic is on track to become the world's first commercial space line. And if you've ever dreamt of joining the incredible group of pioneering astronauts, your opportunity has arrived. During your adventure, you will accelerate to a breathtaking 3.5 times the speed of sound. Then, in the silent tranquility of space, you will experience weightlessness and views of our beautiful planet that will change your perception of life.
One of my passions or reason for wanting to fly in space is based on what these guys that do it say, and they talk about it for the rest of their lives about wow, that was life-changing.
The rocket motor ride is a minute and a half or so, and it's exhilarating. It's like nothing else you've ever done. When that motor does shut down, you get this instant calm and weightlessness. And everything you feel in your body is the same way. It's wow.
Our first Virgingalactic astronauts are booking their own place in history as pioneers of a new space age, and for them, the journey has already started. I've had some incredible adventures in my lifetime, and space is sure to be the greatest one of all. I am going, and I hope you will join me.
That's pretty impressive stuff. Can you put a date on it? When will we see passengers much like yourself up there?
This is the year for Virgingalactic. So on Monday, we built a much bigger spacecraft than the one you saw there. So on Monday, it's got its first part flight in the air. It should break the sound barrier. In about 2 months' time, it'll go up to 2,000 miles an hour, and then we'll start flights into space throughout the rest of this year. And then first quarter of next year, I plan to go up with my family, and then a whole new era of space travels begins. As a matter of interest, if you could afford it, how many people would want to go to space in this room?
Let's have a look. Oh my goodness, that's pretty much everyone.
So it's exciting, and I really, as I said earlier, I think most of you will do it. I mean, it's a little bit like when transatlantic airline travel started in the 1920s. I mean, it cost about $250,000 to cross the Atlantic, and in time the price has come down, and that's the challenge which we've set ourselves.
It's fascinating, it's so exciting, but it is a risk. Would you count yourself as a risk taker? And do you have to be a risk taker to be a great business person?
I think the great entrepreneurs have all taken big calculated risks. And ideally, you must try to protect the downside and make sure that whatever big calculated risk you take, if it goes wrong, it's not going to bring the whole pack of cards crashing down. You used to be an adventurer. Well, I suppose I am still an adventurer as well as an entrepreneur. So whether it was trying to be the first to cross the Atlantic in a hot air balloon, or trying to be the fastest across the Atlantic in a boat or whatever. And with those, as an adventurer, you had to think, what's the worst that can happen? How can I make sure I don't lose my life? How can I make sure I come back to tell the tale? And the same applies as an entrepreneur. Every move you make, you must just take big bold risks, but make sure if this goes wrong or if that goes wrong, there's a way of dealing with it. And if it goes completely wrong, which often it does with people who start business from scratch, learn from it, pick yourself up, brush yourself down, and start again.
And really that's what I wanted to talk about next. In this event, it's all about going big, it's all about making an impact, and when you take the risk, it's wonderful to celebrate success, but there are failures. How did you handle those businesses which didn't go to plan?
Well, most of our businesses, we haven't bought businesses, which is often where companies come spectacularly wrong. Most of our businesses we've built from scratch, and so we can quite quickly see whether people like what we're trying to do or not, and therefore if we feel that they're not enjoying what we've created. I mean, Virgin Brides, we found there weren't any, so we had to stop that pretty quickly.
Disastrous.
But I think what we've learned from our failures. I mean, the most notable failure Virgin had was we thought, damn it, why should Coca-Cola be the #1, best-known brand, biggest brand in the world? Let's see if we can knock them off their pedestal. And we launched Virgin Cola. And for a year and a half, we were outselling Coke in Great Britain and Pepsi, and we were just taking the market by storm. Back in Atlanta, there was an English lady that worked there. She went and saw the president of Coke and said, look, this little Virgin brand, they could be the one brand that could topple us, and you should wake up and take note. And initially he told her not to waste her time. And then 3 months later he rang her back and said, okay, I've got a 747 sitting on the runway at Atlanta. I want you to get 8 SWAT teams together. I'll give you as much money as you want. You go to England and you make sure that Virgin Cola disappears off all the shelves in the supermarkets.
Did you see this coming?
Well, we didn't, and actually, suddenly Virgin Cola just literally disappeared throughout Great Britain within 2 months, and it wasn't until I had a new bank manager about 3 years later at Lloyd's, who happened to be that very same lady. She took me out for drinks. She very proudly told me how she'd driven us out of business. That I realised what had happened. But the lesson we learned from it, I mean, British Airways tried exactly the same thing to us, and you know, they went to extraordinary lengths to put us out of business. I mean, they were going through my rubbish bins, trying to find incriminating things in my letters. We had nightclubs. They were looking for needles in the rubbish bins outside the nightclubs to say that there were drugs taking place in the nightclubs. They had a division behind locked doors which was ringing up our customers, pretending that they were from Virgin, saying that our flights had been cancelled, but British Airways, that we could switch them onto British Airways flights, and so on. And you know, we did manage to discover what was going on because passengers told us, and we did take them to court, and we won a big court case. Now, the difference between the two things was a can of cola, you can't really have a better quality can, you can have as good a can, and therefore, you know, if you just do something based on price, it's very difficult to survive. If you can create a company that's quality, you know, of a quality better, then, you know, when a big carrier tries to drive you out of business, or a big company, it's very, very difficult for them to do so, and the public's stuck with Virgin Atlantic. So, you know, I think what I would recommend to people is, you know, if you're going to create a business, just make sure you're a hell of a lot better than that big Goliath, and in whatever you're doing.
You don't necessarily have to be bigger or stronger, just better.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to be better. You know, if you don't get too bogged down. You know, if you're the chief executive who set up that company, I mean, the people are apt to not learn. They don't learn the art of delegation. You've got to learn that art of delegation very early on. You've got to try to find somebody better than yourself who can run the day-to-day running of that company, so you can be freed up to think about the bigger picture, to have a life as well, keep yourself fit, keep yourself healthy, and I think, I was fortunate that I learned the art of delegation from an early age, and I can be freed up to think big, take the company forward into the be able to firefight when things are going wrong, so I think delegating is really...
It's a key skill, but there's no doubt that you are a character very closely associated with the brand. And if I may just tell a very brief story, I first met Sir Richard 17 years ago, and I know that date because it was just before my son was born. And I was on a press junket, I was a journalist then, we were flying down to Mallorca to go visit a hotel where Richard had a new spa business growing there. It was you and me and about 19 female journalists. In the end, unluckily for Richard, he was sat next to me on the flight down to Mallorca. I wasn't finishing my glass of champagne, it was sat right in front of me. Richard elbows me and says, "Are you finishing that?" I went, "No." He grabs it and downs it in one. And it was at that moment that I realized this is a character. Without your personality, without your character, even though you are delegating, would Virgin be the company it is?
Well, it wouldn't necessarily be the company it is. Hopefully, I think if the people who are running it had created the kinds of companies we created, hopefully they would have done well. But I think if you aren't a David versus Goliath, you need to punch above your weight. And I mean, another bit of advice that Sir Freddie Laker told me, don't worry, not much. Another bit of advice he told me was, you've got one plane, they've got 300 planes. You've got to get yourself on the front page of the newspapers. You mustn't be a little byline at the back. And go out, make a fool of yourself. Put on a pilot's outfit for your first flight. Turn people upside down. Jump off buildings. Fly around the world in balloons. Whatever it takes. I took it to heart, and I think the Virgin brand, has got a sort of a joy of life that British Airways doesn't have, and it's a fun brand. It's a brand that people want to be associated with, and it means that when we launch a new venture, we've got a leg up. Immediately people are going to try it because they know that our last ventures were successful and they like the experience they had with them. Therefore, if we try a new venture, they'll give it a go. So, getting out there, using yourself to to tell people about what you're doing. I mean, there's no point in creating a great quality product if you don't sing and dance about it.
Right, make a noise. Let's move on to a different subject, something I know you care about. CAWorld is carbon neutral, and I know that you care deeply about sustainability. Tell me why it matters in business to think bigger, to think of others, to think of the rest of the planet.
Well, it's not. It doesn't necessarily mean it's not necessarily that important for your business per se. But we are all human beings living on this planet, and a lot of us will have children and grandchildren, and therefore, I think that if the business world can unite as a force for good, and not just think, oh, well, that's the politicians, it's their job to deal with the social world, and it's the social workers, it's their job to deal with that as well. If all of us as business leaders can take on the big problems of this world, or the small problems, depending on how big our companies are, we can get on top of the problems of this world. And so, the environment, we've got this beautiful world. I mean, it just couldn't really be more perfect. We're incredibly lucky, the climate, everything about it, we're fortunate about. And yet, every day we're putting out more carbon, which means we're putting this blanket around the world, which is getting thicker and thicker and thicker. And therefore, it's up to those of us in a position to do something about it, I mean, we're spending... Thank you. We're putting the profits we make from our airlines into trying to develop clean fuels that can power the planes without putting out any carbon, and that's good business sense as well as good for the environment.
And you, to an extent, you were a climate skeptic a while back, and to my understanding, you sat down with Al Gore, you had dinner, and your mind was changed.
Well, I've sat down with a lot of scientists, and I think the vast majority of scientists believe we have an issue. I mean, in America it's strange, there's still quite a lot of skeptics here, but I mean, there's no question that the world is heating up. For whatever reason, it is heating up, and therefore, the Arctic is melting. And so, but what I don't believe in is trying to destroy business in order to sort the problem out. What I do believe in is let's use our engineers, let's use our technicians, let's use our brain power to come up with ways of powering our world which doesn't actually damage the world. For instance, there's one little company in New Zealand called LanzaTech. It's a brilliant little company. They've worked out that you can take the waste product that comes out of steel plants and aluminium plants and you can turn it into jet aviation fuel. So all this shit that was going up into the Earth's atmosphere now can be recycled. And there's actually enough stuff that goes up the chimneys to power every single aeroplane in the world. And obviously, Virgin is working with them on that. And so, we should be able to come up with the answers to most of these problems. We've also, by the way, got a $25 million prize if anybody wants to, if there's any technicians or engineers in the room, or anybody who can take a certain amount of, come up with a way of taking carbon out of the Earth's atmosphere using an engineering method. I'd be very, very happy to write out that check, because if somebody could crack that problem, then we can carry on as business as usual without feeling bad about it.
Innovation is key there. Innovation is a big theme for this event. How important has innovation per se been in the growth of all of your businesses?
I mean, it's so important, and I think that engineers and technicians are not appreciated as much as they should be. I mean, they as I say, they can transform the world. They have transformed the world. I'm great friends with Larry Page from Google. My God, there's just so many incredible things that have been achieved here in America in the last 15 years. And the next 15 years, I'm sure there will be another revolution of things happening. And I'm sure in this room, I would love to hear all the ideas that are going on in people's heads. But I'm sure that there's going to be a whole next generation of exciting things come out of this room.
And I hate to ask you to put a futurologist hat on, but we've asked everyone on the stage today to do just this. If you were to bet on something that is the next big thing, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, whether it's about travel or it's about innovation online or in retail, what do you think might take place next? What might that revolution at least look a little like?
Well, I don't want to go into too much detail, but let's just say that Virgingalactic could put up 3,500 satellites a month, which we can do.
Wow.
People in this room, you can use their imagination to think what could be possible if you could put 3,500 satellites up into space every month. That can create a whole new revolution in a whole lot of different areas.
Can you clear away the old ones, though?
The old satellites. In time, they will ultimately, very slowly. I mean, it depends on they're in the outer atmosphere or the near Earth atmosphere. They will ultimately burn up and come back in. So, the revolution I really hope for is, energy is what powers this world. If we can power this world with clean energy, I think that would be good for the economics of the world, and it would be good for the world.
I have one final talking point for us in the few minutes we have left, and I want to start this question by referring once again to my son. Ollie is my boy. He doesn't want to go to university. And I say to him, Ollie, you have to, you just can't get a job without it. You know who he invokes as proof that you don't need to go? This guy. Because Richard Branson didn't go. But education really matters to you, now especially. Tell me about what Virgin, what your organizations are doing around education, around this challenge for the next generation.
Well, I mean, in the UK, what we've said to the government is, and I'm sorry this isn't going to help you with your arguments with your son. You give all this money to students to go to university, these loans, which they then have to pay off for the rest of their life. If a young person has an entrepreneurial idea, why don't you give them the same amount of money as an entrepreneurial grant? It doesn't matter if they're 17, 18 or 19 or whatever age they are. Let them go out and try to build a business, and if they fall flat on their face, they will have had the best education imaginable by just getting out and trying something and learning about that industry. And actually, if truth be known, most likely they'll learn more by doing that than they would if they'd gone to university. And the government have actually bought into that, and we're now helping give out these grants to people who don't necessarily want to go to university, or some people maybe are halfway through a university course, but they've decided they've got a business idea they want to indulge in. There are some kinds of courses where obviously you've got to go and study them, but there are many courses where just getting out into the real world, I think you'll learn more.
You're right, that doesn't
Having
help.
said all that, as an insurance policy for your son, in case his business fails, it's quite useful to have a degree.
So that's good. That's very good. It must feel good to be able to use some of the success you've enjoyed to give back in a way like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, as I said earlier, I think if every single person in this room could just adopt a problem somewhere in the world using our entrepreneurial skills, it's enormously personally satisfying, and it's great for all the people who work for your companies, and it can make a real difference. And I'd just like to end by saying, to thank everybody in this room, because the money that you paid to come to this conference today, 100% is going to Virgin Unite. So it's fantastic.
Well, thank you for that. And just before I let you go, just before I let you go, somebody, and I don't know who said this, somebody said, you know when you're old, when your memories are greater than your dreams. What's your equation right now? What's the balance?
Oh my God, I hate these sorts of questions. I've already forgotten the question. No, look, I've got, lots and lots and lots of happy memories, lots of wonderful dreams, and hopefully we'll create lots more to dream about in the future.
Absolutely. So Richard Branson, thank you very much indeed.